So basically my day-to-day is I work 7 days a week right now because I'm trying to find ways to work in Asia and bring Asian native content to the West and showing them how they can take the methods that are used in the West to make their stories more understandable and appropriate. So a lot of the stories that are done right now, they're very culturally Asian, but sometimes the Western person may not understand, and that's why they haven't been successful yet. So I give them examples like Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee in the 80s. They were able to do this by telling universal stories and using universal archetypes. So training studios to understand those techniques and those methods. I think there's an opportunity to tell, because Americans or Western people are looking for new stories. And they already have plenty. And if you look at the most famous movies like The Kingsman, Lord of the Rings, or Avatar, those are fantasy movies. They don't take place in the West. And you have to learn about these worlds. So I explain to studios and companies, well, you're like a fantasy. You're like a place that no one knows about, so you have an opportunity to tell your story in a unique way. But when you draw, there's no limitations. You can bend and pull however you want as long as it feels right. So it's worth to understand how to have good craftsmanship skills, learning anatomy, learning timing. Again, observation is one of the biggest things about animation, things that people forget. They think, oh, I just did a great drawing. It's like, it's a great drawing, but does it mean something to somebody? The biggest thing that I learned is that someone's always gonna be better than you, so you shouldn't be self-conscious of your work. You should try to just always be better than you were yesterday, and don't think about drawing. Think about making a funny drawing. So the less I think about drawing, the better the drawing is. It's kind of a Zen thing. Like the more you just feel it, the more you think about it, the more restricted the drawing looks. And try to have fun. And because we're in the business of having fun, and the thing that people forget about, they're trying to, oh, I'm making this realistic drawing. It's like, well, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a drawing. So if you make it exciting, make it fun. If you're trying to reach your audience, you're thinking about them, you will create work. Service the script, and your job is to tell the story of the script and get everyone on the team on board to understand your vision and tell your story, because everyone has their input or their contribution. So you have to recognize your contribution. Sometimes they're doing the wrong thing. You have to guide them to get to the place they need to get to. So a lot of it's ability to know how to do it yourself, but on the other hand, to get people to follow your vision and understand the importance of story. A lot of times people go on their own private way of doing something that doesn't necessarily tell the story. It may be great alone, but it doesn't help the story because you have 22 minutes, and a lot of times they'll do something and drag it out for too long, and it's not an effective way to tell the story, so you have to guide them back. So look, this is great, I'm glad you contributed this, but you have to do it this way, and this is the reason why. So you have to get good at explaining why you need to have something the way you need it, or explain to them, like, if you do not complete it the way I need it to, I'm going to have to give it to somebody else, or I'm going to do it myself. Writing is very important when it comes to animation and content development, and communicating. That's one thing that people forget about. People think it's just about drawing, but a lot of it is, can you tell your story in an effective way? You can draw as much as you want, but it's more effective to be able to write and explain it, then you do your drawings. And when I was younger, and most people when they're young, they think, oh, I'm just gonna do some drawings, it's gonna be great. And it is great that they're doing it because they're passionate. You want passionate people, but they have to understand that they're taking their personal story and they want to express it to a broader audience or a larger audience. They have to understand what they're saying. It's different for everyone. In my particular case, I used to draw, but I didn't necessarily have the talent to animate because I had very bad eye and hand coordination. Basically, when I played baseball, I couldn't catch. I was really terrible with and that was one of the skills you read in the book you had to have good eye and hand because you're redrawing the same image but changing it slightly. So even though I was afraid, I really wanted to be an animator. I think, well, even though I don't have the skills, I might be able to learn it. And so it's an acquired skill, but you have to have the passion. So some people are natural talents. I was somewhere in the middle. I naturally could draw, but there were some skill sets I didn't have. But because if you're passionate and willing to, endlessly practice and be humble about well, you're not going to always be right. You're going to make a lot of failures. You can get through it and learn. I mean, I've had emotional breakdowns thinking I'm never going to figure it out, but you have to persevere. Before I worked in the movie, a lot of times I felt it was like us against the world. When you worked in the movie, you felt like it's a really team effort. And all those hours and then to have it be a success, it was like such a relief because you put all, it's 2 years of your life and then you don't know if it's going to be good or not. I mean, obviously I didn't write it, but when you're working on it, you're trying to make all these things work. So it was huge. And then also meeting my mentor, Mike Anderson, who was my director, and he taught me so many things and that changed my life completely. So one of the things I would always say in animation, you want to find a mentor. Someone, because when you're young, you may have opinions or thoughts that may be misguided. And someone with experience can kind of train you to think in the best way possible. And he knows so much about story. He taught me so many things that if I didn't know him, I would have been 5 years, 10 years behind trying to learn these things on my own. Where he knew them all already, and every time we were doing something, he was like always being in school. He would always tell me like how to make things better, why I'm doing something that was okay but could be improved. It was so interesting because of the variation of work, because we were going over content development and seeing their ideas. I'm like, they're so varied, it's crazy. Because like I had a perception of what the ideas were going to be, and they blew me away. Some were super serious, super unique, super touching. Some were like crazy in a good way, and I'm like, wow, that was awesome. And again, some were super young, and they've taken the opportunity to try to learn, and that's amazing. And then there's older people. So I'm pretty excited about what they're doing, and I hope that what I'm teaching them can help them develop their content to reach more people, or their premise for their story, and making sure that I pose questions about their story so they can answer them, so they can make their story more effective and more universal. And I think we made some progress in the last workshop, so I was really glad to do that, and then talk to the people about products and how they can reach more people